Subroto sir, please start.
Start করে দাও। শুভাশিস।
Hello.
Continue, please continue.
Continue করবো স্যার?
হ্যাঁ।
Good afternoon to all. In this session, our eminent speaker, Dr. Robijit Roy. Dr. Robijit Roy is a professor, Department of Film Study and formerly Director, School of Media, Communication and Culture, Jadavpur University. He is a member of editorial boards of study in South Asian films. Yes, sir.
একটু আপনি করবেন। আচ্ছা।
স্যার শুনতে পাচ্ছেন?
All of you, myself, professors, Professor Now starts our third session of international workshop. Now present here our respected research person in session, Dr. Robijit Roy, Department of Film Studies. Welcome, sir. Now our respected research person.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, all. Dr. Robijit Roy.
Dr. Manojit, please ভিডিওটা ওপেন করুন।
আচ্ছা হ্যাঁ স্যার, ওকে স্যার। Okay, sir. Actually, I am in an office. Okay. Dr. Robijit Roy is a professor, Department of Film Studies and former Director of Communication and Culture, Jadavpur University. He is a member of editorial boards of studies in South Asian films and media, journal and movie, and International Journal of Politics and Media. Professor Roy writes on films, media and politics and has received visiting fellowship from Maison des Sciences in Paris and Indian Institute of Advanced Studies, Shimla. He has presented papers in many countries: India, UK, USA, France, Denmark, Sweden, Netherlands, Hong Kong, Taiwan and Bangladesh. Professor Roy has worked with his students to create a fieldwork-based multiple media website on bookbinding workers of Kolkata and has been the great consultant for Kolkata Wetland Organization and to write new projects. Welcome, sir, to continue this session.
Thank you for your generous introductions. Can you hear me properly?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I first thank Kalinagar Mahavidyalaya for inviting me to this international online workshop. And I consider this to be a great honor and privilege. Today's topic is research methods in film studies. I have also been asked to also say a few words about media studies research, but that is a very wide field. So maybe I won't be able to do justice to that. Possibly I'll restrict only to cinema. Though over the last, some 20 years or so, now towards television, new media, internet, cyber cultures, um, away from cinema per se, though I uh, sometimes teach and write on cinema, but I basically do my research and primarily teach uh, topics on uh, the broader terrain of media, television studies, broadly media studies. Uh, Now, the problem is that film studies, sure, there might be 2 or 3 participants who are already conversant with the critical protocols of film studies, but I also presume that the majority of the audience present here uh, is not acquainted with some of the basic foundational. And that is the reason why I would engage with some of the very basic conceptual propositions involved in film studies, because without going through them, it will be very difficult to talk about methods in research. Not all of you would actually undertake research concerning film or cinema, but those of you who wish to do some work in the field of cinema studies, film studies, for them this might be useful. And I would try to keep alive also the interdisciplinary tenor here, because that is the focus of this workshop, and talk about intermediality, talk about interdisciplinarity, and especially those who have come from humanities and social sciences discipline. For them, this might actually be helpful because one can actually go beyond film studies and invoke visual material. Even when you are doing your work in the field of literature, history, anthropology, sociology, there are many people, many academics, many researchers who invoke audiovisual material, visual material in their research papers. So this might also come handy to them. Anyway, so let us begin first with some of the very basic foundational concepts in film studies, and then we would move on to methods. First of all, there is a fundamental difference, though that difference is not mutually exclusive. It does not establish mutually exclusive relationship between the two categories, but it is important to understand the levels of difference between these two forms of engagement. One is film appreciation, the other is film studies. Film appreciation is something that you may have heard about. There are film appreciation courses offered by film societies. There are film appreciation courses. A very old film appreciation course is running something which is titled as film appreciation by various state governments. The government of West Bengal, also for more than 25 years, has offered a film appreciation course from the late 90s. So film appreciation is somewhat a kind of an older model, and which was inalienably attached with the film society movement. And film societies, were devoted to understanding films, appreciating films, um, you know, taking film almost as a kind of a cause, a window to the world, understanding people and their histories. But generally, there is an element of taste. এটা আমরা বাংলায় বলি রুচি ভালো রুচির নির্মাণ, building up of good taste. So there is an underlying assumption of what is a good film, what is a bad film. In this whole drive, film appreciation trajectory. So film societies were very much concerned about aesthetics, and they thought that to watch good film is something which is a kind of a sacred task. The first film society was established in 1947. In India, the first film society was established in 1947 in Calcutta, and Shotyajit Ray, Chidananda Dasgupta, Vamshi Chandragupta, and many others were involved in forming the first film society. The idea was to watch good films, invite people to watch what they thought good films, and this was mainly a post-Second World War phenomenon. And then have discussions around them. So it was centered around films, primarily techniques. Many of them went on to make films, and they were also interested in technology and techniques and different things. But generally, it was about building a kind of a culture of watching good films and a test for good films, and broadly a test for art and aesthetics. And film studies has a different set of concerns. First of all, film studies actually takes birth in a different kind of a historical context. And that context is what we sometimes refer to as the cultural turn of the late 60s, early 1970s, in which you have a new culture of interrogation in traditional disciplines, for instance, new disciplines coming up and being accommodated in universities, for instance, women's studies, feminism. And this is the time when film studies also is being born in the US and in the UK, Anglo-American and Caribbean, then also spreading across Europe. And if in film appreciation, the key word, the phrase that helps us understand film appreciation was aesthetics. In case of film studies, the word that helps us understand is politics. So there is an element of film for film's sake, like art for art's sake in case of film appreciation. In case of film studies, something which emerges kind of a formal pedagogic discipline in colleges and universities from around the 1970s, early 1970s, has this concern about politics, and not film for film's sake, but taking film as an entry point in understanding larger issues in society and culture. So I suppose this difference is something which is gradually becoming clear to us. In order to understand, we can engage in this kind of a binary, but I'll also try and dissolve this binary and talk about the interconstitutive relationship between film studies and film appreciation in a short while. But when we try and understand a category, we first have to discern things, and then only we can talk about the overlaps. So likewise, broadly, film appreciation was inclined more towards and continues to incline, though the film society as a kind of a historical social project has somewhat seen its demise. There are a number of film societies now, but the heyday of film society is gone. Anyway, so if it is aesthetics, in case of film studies, it is politics. In case of film appreciation, if the repository of the major site of patronage was the film society, in case of film studies, the major site of patronage are universities. Uh, so these are, and another difference I was talking about in case of film appreciation, uh, there's this whole kind of a project which at times sort of sort of collated with the project of the state to build up good taste. So it, one can go to the extent of suggesting, you know, extent of aligning this to the project of citizen construction, citizenization. In case of film studies, on the other hand, the project is rather critical, political. Films being taken as a kind of an entry point into understanding larger issues in society, politics, culture, history, and fundamentally critical about institutions. It could be state, it could be capital, it could be patriarchy, you know. So you can understand that the mode of analysis also, even if you take film text as the fundamental unit of analysis, you'll see the mode of analysis also is different in case of film studies. The most important thing to remember here is that these are not essentially mutually exclusive categories. You know, aesthetics and politics are not to be sort of taken as two categories which can be completely separated from each other. You know, we have to live with the idea of what is good or bad, which is a major concern for appreciation or aesthetics. And on the other hand, of course, the idea of politics to take film as a kind of an entry point to understand, to go into the terrain of social political analysis is something which is also crucial. So you cannot have film studies without an understanding of aesthetics. You cannot, nowadays, if you look at film societies and the way they are engaging with films, you'll see a lot of intrusion from film studies as well. So there's a kind of a mutual penetration that has historically taken place, and this is something which I wouldn't go into and wouldn't explore further, because that is not what we are primarily concerned with. But I'm sure that by elaborating on this, I have been able to lay out the primary concerns of film studies and the critical protocols of which we would try and invoke here. So broadly on this side, film studies, you have politics, political, critical concerns, historical concerns, ideological concerns, and not film for film's sake, but film as an entry point into understanding wider terrain of the social. There are two fundamental difference that you make. This is very important for us to understand, because as you know, that while one writes about film or cinema, whatever it is, one has to use the phrases and the words, and use the categories in a particular manner. So every discipline has its own critical protocols, ways of usage. So we make a distinction between film and cinema. In fact, this was a distinction that was made by Geoffrey Noel Smith. Today, I would deliberately refrain from sort of dropping names and bringing in sort of, you know, titles of essays or books, because that will somewhat convolute this whole, a kind of simplicity in my talk that I wish to sustain. So, film and cinema, to put it simply, film, we use film whenever we are referring to the text, the film text. Cinema refers to the larger institution concerning production, exhibition, circulation, consumption. So everything related to film, right? So cinema is kind of phenomenon. Cinema is an institution. Cinema concerns spectatorship, consumption, circulation, distribution, production, exhibition, the economic aspects of it. Okay. So so that you understand while we are writing, you understand what you are basically referring to. One example would actually make this distinction very clear. From this perspective, it would be right to say that this evening I'm going to watch a film. So we don't say we are going to watch a cinema, right? I mean, of course, quotidian references in popular parlance, while we are speaking casually, you can always say a cinema, but while we are writing in a journal or in academic writing, we make it a point to refer to film as a text. So this evening I'm going to watch a film, right? But then when you say that, let us say the business of, then you should mention possibly cinema, right? Because that's, you are referring to cinema. It involves, as I said, circulation, distribution, exhibition, production, etc. Or maybe the audience of, let us say, Bengali cinema has taken this kind of a turn. So you're referring to basically cinema because you are referring to a larger institution. You're referring to a cross-section of people who used to watch Bengali cinema in a particular way, and now they are watching, or they are going, or not going to that extent, whatever. So you're referring to cinema, right? So we have to keep alive that distinction, and that is what is maintained. Corresponding to this distinction between film and cinema, there is another distinction, and mind you, I said corresponding to this. And that distinction is between spectator and audience. So a film has a spectator, right? While a spectator is that subject or subjectivity, which is to be understood in terms of the moment of the film, while the film is on, or vis-a-vis that film, engagement with the text, right? So the moment of the film is the moment of spectation, watching, right? A lot of things happen in our minds while we watch, right? In terms of psychological sort of changes, shifts. A lot of things go, into our thoughts, and that is about the spectatorship of the film. But vis-a-vis cinema, there is an audience. Vis-a-vis cinema means about vis-a-vis the institution of cinema, production, exhibition, distribution, consumption, circulation, this whole the business of it, the economics of it, or whatever. There is an audience. What is an audience? Audience is a cross-section of people who do a lot of things. I mean, who actually go to the market, who are to be seen outside in the streets as part of a crowd, but who also go to watch films, right? Watch films. So, audience is to be imagined in terms of collectivity, which is there, right? But it's not essentially the individual and the collective. The spectator subject refers to, for instance, every film actually wants to, generally, of course, a popular film or whatever, a film has an ideal spectator in its mind, in the film's mind, for instance. So the film wants to create that kind of expectation, which means a mode of watching. Film says that I should be watched in this way, right? And the spectator might sort of get into that kind of a framework. The spectator might refuse. The spectator might go completely all right. In case of the audience, we are referring to people. We are referring to film-going public, let us say, right? Not spectatorship. So that's why, I mean, in studies in spectatorship, a lot of psychoanalysis, how what happens when a particular kind of film actually runs. If you read Laura Mulvey's famous essay she wrote in 1975 called Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, she's basically talking about spectatorship and how a typical Hollywood popular film, a classical Hollywood popular film, presumes a male gaze, a gaze which is basically imbricated very much within kind of a patriarchal framework. So, and that male gaze is not essentially to be understood in terms of the male members in the audience, but the male gaze, a woman might also kind of subscribe to the male gaze, the patriarchal gaze. So she's talking about therefore, spectatorship. She's talking about text and corresponding to it a spectator film relationship. Cinema, the larger institution of cinema, has a broader relationship with the audience, right? Audience is cinema's concern. Spectator is film's concern. But of course, I mean, all these four categories are definitely related to each other, and you can understand. I don't have to tell you how they are related. So these are very, very basic concepts, but these are not only for knowing. And I'm sure that the more and more you think about them, you'll be able to, and all of us will be able to think clearly about and such discerning, such untying of categories always helps us engage critically with film. In any kind of research, those of you who want to do some research on cinema would have to have a very fundamental understanding of film form. One of the major problems in film studies research, and I wouldn't say film studies research, because film studies is a discipline that you come across only at in a heavy way, only at the master's level, and more importantly, I mean, something which is not widespread. It's not taught everywhere, not there, offered as a program everywhere. I mean, in India, of course, Jadavpur University has an MA program. And undergraduate is not the honors. There's no honors anywhere. It's the minor, which is going to be renamed as minor in the new kind of system. But it used to be subsidiary at some point of time, or a pass course at some point of time, which you have to take along with the honors, and then generic elective, and then now possibly minor and multidisciplinary courses at the undergraduate level. But that's not honors. It's only at the master's level that you have film studies, full-time 2-year MA degree. And so Jadavpur University, JNU, Delhi, and FLU, Hyderabad, and some other universities, a couple of others. In West Bengal also, there is another university, West Bengal State University, where you have film studies. So it's just a few of the departments which offer, and but this is a very interesting kind of a pedagogic problem. But almost every day we actually have people coming to us telling us that, well, I have done my master's in literature or history or sociology, but the topic that I've chosen concerns cinema. Okay. Now the problem is that if what many people do not realize that you Of course, you can do that, but it's quite a task to start your understanding, formal, academic, critical understanding of a medium or apparatus, whatever you call it, called film. Only at the PhD level. So it's not like literature, which you have come across right from your schools, or history, or geography, or physics, or even possibly legal studies or sociology, which you can come across from the higher secondary level. And then so if you've done your master's, it's fine. If not, then the problem is that you have to actually go through all those primary readings. Otherwise, to kind of jump into one topic might be difficult. So it is advisable to do some basic readings, maybe for the first one year at least, and then get into particular topics. One such concern, without which you cannot get into film research, is issues concerning form, film form. It's not only content, and people from other disciplines. So they have usually seen that they have two primary concerns. One is of representation. The other is so generally content, so narrative or representation. So it's a story, the narrative, or representation. Representation is, there is a kind of reality which is being reflected in this particular text. It's representing that, right? It's a representation of women in popular in the cinema from this to this time frame, something like that. Now the form is crucial. So we have to understand what is a classical form, what is a primitive mode of representation, what is institutional mode of representation. There is, for instance, a huge literature on Indian popular film form. Okay, so there is kind of an overarching film form which the Indian popular cinema has, which is starkly different from the classical Hollywood film form. Okay, so issues in form are crucial, not only when you are actually reading the film text, but also trying to relate that to the larger issues in the economic aspect, social, political aspect of industrial aspects of film, for instance. So very quickly, of course, there are many kinds of forms, but two fundamental forms that everybody has to get into one's head very clearly. One is called the classical Hollywood cinema. So what is classical? What is so classical about it? The word classical is used usually in the sense of something, a set of conventions, which has kind of standardized ways of storytelling across the world, right? So it's like very linear, cause and effect progression through time. So cause one leads to effect one. Effect one is the cause two, which leads to effect three. Effect three is the cause two, which leads to effect four. That kind of thing, etc. And this is another very important thing: is the classical Hollywood cinema is not all of the American industrial cinema. It's basically the 1930s to 1960s. It's not before the late 20s, mid 20s, late 20s. You have this kind of a classical Hollywood film form being ossified into an institutional, standardized film form, which is also called at times by called IMR, which is institutional mode of representation, as opposed to which cinema was, the first, for the first time, film was the cinematic machine was first exhibited in 1895. So there is a lot of history before that, from the days of the magic lantern, the 18th century, and a lot of sort of instruments being innovated, all converging into the moment of 1895 when you have now moving images recorded and exhibited for the first time in a cellulose-based chemical sort of plate. So that's why it was called celluloid. Celluloid exists, of course, no more. It's digital, all digital, everywhere. Those cans, the days of those cans, those film cans, rolls, that kind of a projector, where you put the rolls into the projector and run it, whirls on, and the beam of light passes through the beam of light, there's a projection onto the screen, that is gone. Now we are in the digital era. Anyway, so the earlier typical mode of representation came into being, which is called the PMR, which is the primitive mode of representation. Now, very quickly, what are these two? Once again, in order to understand, we have to first sort of talk about the difference between them. It's only after understanding the difference between them we can understand the overlaps. Primitive mode of representation, when cinema came for the first time, in the first few years, since 1895 to the teens of the 20th century, 1910, 12, 15, cinema was exhibitionist in the sense that it was very frontal, this very convention of characters looking at each other, stroke, kind of a fiction. Even if it was a fiction, I mean, they would actually look at you many a time, so that convention didn't emerge. So this frontality, not literally always characters or those who are actually caught unaware in actualite kind of films, or reportage kind of films. Not always they would look at you, but the film's mode of presentation would be very frontal. So, and what would emerge later on as the institutional mode of representation, something which still continues, a typical popular run-of-the-mill industrial storytelling convention is something which centers the subject inside the frame, for instance, which we call centripetality. In the earlier days, you'd have centrifugality, which means that not be centered, sometimes half of the figure would be visible, so it's like that post-impressionist paintings of Van Gogh, which would at times give you the impression that if you look at Whitfield or many other paintings, you'd see that it's almost like if you lean a little rightward, you'll be able to see a bit more of that, of what has been kind of enframed, So the primitive mode of presentation is almost like that. It's a slice of reality, not the centripetal sort of centripetated frame. Also discontinuity, rupture. Broadly, the primitive mode of representation was all about a kind of, something that had loose ends and something that was not well organized. It's only after gradually the institutional mode of representation comes into being. What is the reason? The reason is capitalization of film, which means, to put it in the simplest terms, is that earlier, from 1895 to, let's say, the 1915-20, film was taken to be, film was a part of working class culture. There's this 200-year-old tradition, more possibly, of music halls, penny arcades, beer gardens, and circus tents. So there'll be variety shows. Film would actually get a place there, maybe 5 minutes. There'll be posters that you can now watch people walking. You can now watch people who have been long dead. So there'll be a major point of attraction. Among many other attractions like jugglery, like Pierrot acts, like comedy, like a bit of a dance and a bit of a song and a bit of everything. So variety show, right? And film would actually find a place there. That's why films would be very open-ended. One of the major functions, one of the major characteristics of the institutional mode of representation, which would emerge later on, / the classical Hollywood film, would be closure. Closure means all the sort of questions, all the threads of the narrative would sort of give all kinds of answers that might have been raised in your mind. So the perfect closure, right? Anyway, so the institutional mode of presentation from late 20s onwards, something which gets standardized by 1930s, would have closure, continuity, would have a centripetality of frames, well organized, right? It is related to the fact of business of the moment film becomes commodity, part of the larger capitalist drive. It's only when you see for quick large scale production, you cannot allow film to be sort of to remain within a kind of a very disorganized kind of a sector where somebody comes and then discovers film making in one's own way. It will take time, right? So you have to straitjacket film production. So that is the reason why almost unwritten rules were emerged for filmmaking and in film form. Okay. In fact, many of them were actually written. There were producers' manual, there were directors' manual, there was cinematographers' manual, and I'm talking about the area around the Los Angeles where the American film industry is emerging heavily from 1930s to 1960s. Please keep this in mind. That is taken to be the period for the classical Hollywood cinema historically. Because after the 1960s, you have various other kinds of film emerging very much within the American film industry. Some of them actually mocking the classical Hollywood films, for instance. So everything was done to serve the capitalist purpose that films had. So films initially in the earlier days they used to wander around, beside a riverville, small tent, and films would be shown, part of working class audience. But now there'll be located theater halls. There'll be every sign and every signifier of capitalism. For instance, there'll be copyrights associated with film, and there'll be motion pictures patents committee, everything. Okay, that is how you get this whole history of films. More and more it gets capitalized, more and more in terms of form it gets straitjacketed. And that is what is the institutional mode of presentation. If you ask, where does it come from? Is it something that cinema, of course, the institutional cinema discovered all by itself? No. Now, this is a very important thing that I'm going to tell you, is that the institutional mode of representation or the classical Hollywood film form corresponds to the 19th century novelistic form. The mode of address is the 19th century novel, and to be more precise, the 19th century West European novel. So you can think of Dickens, for instance, where, Eisenstein also wrote an essay called Dickens, Griffith. Griffith is considered to be first major figure of classical form. Dickens, Griffith, and Film Today, and wrote very early on, actually, possibly 1920s. So it shows how Griffith can be understood in terms of Dickens's mode of storytelling, for instance. For instance, those of you who have studied literature, I'm sure you know much more than this. Is that much more than me? Is that one of the major characteristics of the novelistic mode of address, the 19th century West European novel, or sometimes which is also called classical narration, is transparency of text. What is transparency of text? Is that you are basically looking into some kind of a reality. And of course, even if it's a literature, you are visualizing a lot of things, right? Through somebody, which is the narrator of the text. but it doesn't appear that you are meant to see through somebody's eyes, and it almost looks like an autonomous domain, right? As if there is nobody in between, no intervening body in between. It is not through anybody's vision that you are watching it. It almost looks like an unmediated real world. Um, it's like a glass pane. That's why the word transparency comes. You are actually looking through some kind of a mediate. There is a kind of a mediating surface, but you don't realize. So transparent is it that you think that you are actually looking at it sort of unmediated. Right? So the 19th century West European novels, one of the major characteristics is realism and something which is enhanced by the transparency of text. Similar is what emerged in case of Hollywood. Is a heavy investment in the reality effect of it, transparency for instance. I mean, in Dickens also, in Bonking also, you'll see that when the two characters start to talk, they talk to each other, and so initially, of course, the names are given for maybe twice or thrice, and after that, there are dashes. So they converse. Okay, so it's one of the techniques of the novel to erase the trace of the author from the body of the text. Okay, so it's almost like a relatively autonomous machine which drives it forward, and it's this air of the unmediated real, right? In many ways, you can actually sort of compare the classical Hollywood film form with the 19th century novelistic mode of address. These two modes of address. Okay, so the thing is, so this is a very fundamental understanding that one has to have. In fact, now this is a very important thing, that PMR, which is like frontal, discontinuous, open-ended, as opposed to the classical Hollywood film form, which was invested into not frontal, but along the horizontal axis of narrative, and not open-ended, but offering closure, not discontinuous, but it's kind of a very coherent continuity that it offers. We see that this difference is crucial for a researcher to keep in mind, precisely because this difference is not to be confused as kind of historically located in some kind of a sequentiality, as if PMR is old and early. So of course, it's referred to as pre-modern. Christopher Binney has actually contested this kind of phrasing. It says it's not pre-modern, let's call it alternative modern. The typical modern cinematic narration is that continuity, 19th century novel or the Hollywood film form. But the other is the pre. If you say pre, it's it has a problem because it always gives you a sense of something that happened earlier. Why it's a problem? Because primitive mode of representation is not something which happened earlier, but it's something which has always kept alive its relevance and has been it can be traced in practice, and it still continues. And it is in this connection that the Indian popular film form, and that's why those of us who will be doing research on Salvation context and Indian context, it's very important for us to realize. The Indian popular film form from the 90s is a major film discourse that emerges, and for instance, our department also emerges out of that kind of a film movement. And not only that kind of a film movement, but of course, our department has a different kind of a history, but there is kind of a relation to I came to Yadava University to receive an honorary delete, and made this comment that if formally film studies we should think of formally starting film studies as an academic discipline. It's only after that, of course, it was very influential. So central government took initiative, visited, and it's in 1993 you have the Film Studies Department established in Jadavpur, which was the first Film Studies Department in India. But our department, right from the beginning, has actually carried the sensibility of 60s cultural turns, 70s politics, film studies, and of course, because ours is film studies. So the initial syllabus and the subsequent syllabi, if one actually looks, you'd see that it drifts away and away from film appreciation mode, which ironically, of course, Shotyajit Ray and others should be aligned to. Much more kind of a modern project of storytelling, etc. Not an avant-garde experimental other projects. But still, now the thing is, one, in fact, something that I actually forgot to mention is that one of the major differences between film appreciation mode and the film studies mode is that in the film appreciation, if you look at the trajectory of film appreciation right from the 30s in case of Europe and 40s in our case, down to the 70s, 80s. It's after the late 80s, 90s, you have somewhat kind of sort of waning of the values of film appreciation. Film societies also, many of them start dwindling. Unfortunately, because we have learned so much from the film societies, their daily screenings and their discussions, our sense of the great, what is a good film, who are the great authors, who are the great masters. We are all indebted to film societies. But one of the major differences is that for film studies, popular cinema is a major concern. Because popular cinema is working class cinema. Popular cinema is not only working class cinema, the popular cinema is mass culture cinema. And and it is through popular cinema that one can actually understand the politics of state, workings of the capital, workings of various kinds of subjects, the way patriarchy works in our society, gender relations, body, sexuality. Something which was never much of a concern for film appreciation mode. Okay. In a way, what I am actually doing in this very limited kind of sort of premise of 1.5 hours is to acquaint you very briefly with the concerns of film studies, because I cannot do everything, right? Had it been an sociology method class directed to a sociology refresher course sort of audience, then of course a professor of sociology would assume a lot of things. Because all of you teach sociology, so one can start from a certain advanced point. But this is something that I cannot afford to do, because knowing it pretty well that possibly none of you, or maybe just very few of you, teach film studies or are engaged in sort of academic exercise in film, on film. So I have to sort of start rather from the assumption of common minimum denominator, which is from the scratch. But then the idea is to provoke you into thinking in terms of the critical concerns of the discipline. And that's it. If I can actually do that, that's fine. It's very difficult to go into the methods. Of course, maybe for the last 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so, I'll get deeper into the terrain of film studies and talk about research. So the question of form is very important. So this is a kind of institutional form, and this is a kind of, some people call it pre-modern, some people call it alternative modern form. And it's not to be understood merely in terms of the pre-MR France, and IMR in America, and IMR spreading all over the world and providing some kind of a grammar of storytelling to the rest of the world, not only in the US. But both of it, not only they are not to be also taken as separate vocations and separate exercises. There are a number of films you possibly have already come across, in which you'll see that there is a kind of a very interesting melange between institutional mode of storytelling, which is like cause and effect progression through time, very linear, having a closure, teleological progression, predictability of it. I mean, the sort of the villain tries to do something, and hero arrives at the 11th hour and sort of rescues the heroine. Typical run-of-the-mill popular film kind of thing. And very much within that, you might actually come across some of the sensibilities of what has already been established as those of the avant-garde and experimental, in which there's a lot of play with the narrative. So it's not so easy to make a distinction between the institutional form and the alternative modern form, always. But as I said, you have to first understand them separately, and then only you can think in terms of actual manifestation of the dissolution of both of these. And there are other forms as well. I mean, these are fundamental, but there are various other kinds of forms. But the forms are not to be confused with genres. Genres are historically located practices which have particular traits and which can engage in various kinds of forms. For instance, I mean, in particular, especially, I mean, if you take example of, and this is what happens only in case of popular industrial forms. You have genres where, for instance, in Hollywood, you had the Western genre, right? The Wild West, the Westerner hero, who's also a renegade, is not taken inside his community. And the chase sequence, the cowboy hats, riding on a horse, chase sequences, etc. Howard Hawks, John Ford. So right from the 30s to the 60s, golden period of the Western heroes. Sholay, for instance, is sometimes called a curry western. And many of the thematic concerns actually. So genres are basically to be understood in terms of molds, and they have also been explained in terms of large-scale capitalist production. This is what happens. I mean, if somebody asks you to make sweet meat, সন্দেশ তৈরি করতে বলে আর এক তাল ছানা দিয়ে দেয় এবং বলে যে নিজের মতন করে করুন, এবং বিভিন্ন রকমের শেপ সাইজও ভাবতে পারেন, যা খুশি করতে পারেন, সময় নিয়ে নানা রকম লাগবে। But if somebody actually comes and gives you 2 molds or 3 molds, দেখবেন খুব সহজে খুব দ্রুত সন্দেশ তৈরি করা সম্ভব হবে। নেবেন ছাঁচে ফেলে সন্দেশ, ছাঁচে ফেলে সন্দেশ। The more and more molds or chance you have, faster would be production. So it's like you go to a Hollywood studio, you realize that, okay, this is a Western film, right? And Western film, even at times you'll have particular kinds of dresses kept in studios so that you do not need much time to think about the dress, but why only dress? Maybe a particular kind of narrative trajectory, choosing particular casting and everything, But that is the pleasure. You actually go to relive that genre time and again. And that is what, that is how the great masters of the Westerns, for instance, John Ford, Howard Hawks, you can watch 1939 film, John Ford's Stagecoach, for instance. It's freely available on the internet, YouTube. And this is a typical Western film. There are many others, of course. See, if Western is a genre, there's another genre, could be musical. right? Another genre could be horror film. Another genre could be small town comedy. So these are modes which actually facilitate a large scale production. Uh, you know, there are a lot of writings on how, therefore, within the generic conventions of Hollywood, authors emerge with their styles, typical individual styles. There's a very interesting kind of relationship between genre that constructs the author that tries to go beyond the genre and establish a signatorial style. Anyway, so genre, author, style, form, spectator, audience, film, cinema. I mean, on each of these, of course, I mean, there are a lot of discourses, a lot of debates. I cannot do justice to all of them. And Indian cinema is also Indian popular film form has been theorized to be investing more into the sonic. Sound is much more important here than the 19th century. Ocular modern. In the 19th century, the modernity, which we do not use the term enlightenment nowadays, it's modernity. So 19th century is taken to be ocular. Ocular means visual. It's heavily invested in the visual. And towards the end of the 18th and throughout the 19th century, you have somewhat kind of a celebration of and primary investment into the visual as beauty, visual as evidence connected to the legal, juridical processes as well. Seeing is believing. It's a very modern kind of ethos, which is something which possibly is the most misleading of statements. Something that we live in a world, for instance, we don't even have to come to the days of fake videos, or deep fakes, or we can think of the history of cinema photographs, right? So the visual is the most deceptive, because it is underlined by this belief that I saw it that in my own eyes, and therefore I believed it. নিজের চোখে দেখেছি মানে অবিশ্বাস করি। কিন্তু সিনেমা বা যে কোনো দৃশ্য মাধ্যম বা দৃশ্য শ্রাব্য মাধ্যম তার মতন মিথ্যে কথা আর কেউ বলতে পারে না, কারণ সে এইটার উপর, এই আধুনিক প্রত্যয়ের উপর নির্ভরশীল। যা দেখেছি তা নিশ্চয়ই বিশ্বাসযোগ্য। Anyway, so that one can actually go on talking about the relationship between the modern ocular visual basis of modernity and deception representation. সেটা অন্য প্রসঙ্গ। But at the same time, as opposed to this, which is ocular, and another, of course, beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, for instance, another modern kind of an articulation, for instance, which comes out from Romanticism. You'll see that how eyes and beholding, etc., become very crucial in modern influences. And there are a number of there's a huge literature on how visualization, description, they become very important parts of modern narration in literature, and how after the coming of cinema, literature also started producing a kind of discourse which is very visual. Anyway, as opposed to which, whatever you call it, third world, South Asian, developing, non-West, there is a heavy investment into the sonic, sound, for instance. And it's not visual. So Indian popular film form is taken to be something which heavily invests into the sound. So when sound came in at a particular moment in 1928, 29. So I mean, if I lend it from Satyajit Ray, our films, their films, so their films wanted to become talkies. In our films, it was all song and dance, songs, uh, huge musical and sonic investment. So their film went on to become more realistic in terms of people now starting to talk, which they were not able to do earlier on, of course, and now they are able to do it, which they're coming proximate, more proximate, coming closer to real people, somewhat a limited idea of reality, a reality in which physically exists to breathe in. As opposed to our films, in which the song and dance actually creates a different kind of a filmic world, in which films become at times, for many actually, our films look very surreal. Suddenly there is this um, stopping of the narrative, and song starts, right? Um, in fact, the whole call, this is from 1930s. This is something that started from Bengal, particularly Shorinor Mohan Mukhopadhyay, Vishwadaji Ranjan Mukhopadhyay. Many of the Bengali literatures, they are very unhappy about this whole sort of, typical new theatres, Bombay Talkies, Prabhat Studios kind of musical extravaganza or melodrama, which is literally called mellow plus drama, right? Melody, melodrama, and drama, that kind of thing. So their movement was called call for social means that we have to move towards kind of narrative and not a sudden sort of arrival and sudden sort of appearance of song without any rhythm, without any logic. That is what Indian popular cinema is all about, etc. In fact, a lot of writings that goes on, it's the legacy of that which people like Satyajit Ray, Chidananda Das Gupta, many of them actually cultivated on and on. And by the time you come to the late 40s, early 50s, I mean, that sensibility of the Bengali Bhadradok is quite established, and it's from that sensibility that you have a film like Pote Pote, where there is, you do not have a song in the conventional sense of the term, extra-diegetic song. No. It is inspired by the Italian neorealist films, which is close to our neorealist films, uh, uh, not the Indian popular film form. Anyway, so but of course, before the 1925, 26, 28, all films were silent. So you cannot say the PMR was sound film, but it's very interesting. It's called that. No film was ever silent. Why? Because silent cinema, silent films, there were accompaniments. So while a silent film was on, you have musicians playing music while the film was on, and that's why it's called No Film Was Silent. Here also in Calcutta, in Uno Cinema, for instance, we had Bajon bands, musicians playing music when films were on. So it's a very interesting kind of a sonic investment there, etc. Anyway, so I'm just trying to sort of complicate this whole distinction between the PMR and the IMR. Once we have come to know about the distinction, it's very important. One of the major sort of modes of study that we have to actually come out of, I'm not saying out of, I mean, this is indispensable. I mean, we cannot go beyond that. It's textual analysis. And this is what happens always when not only people who are coming from literature, but also film studies. We are so very preoccupied with literary concerns that textuality and text become very important for us. But this is something which has historically been interrogated by the film studies discipline. That film is connected to cinema, which is the larger institution of production, exhibition, distribution, consumption. And spectatorial engagement is always connected to the larger issues in audience. So that's very important for us to understand. So textual analysis is definitely important, but exclusively doing that, telling just simply the stories and trying to find out, engage in some kind of ideological analysis of the representation of characters. After a point of time, that becomes a problem. There's another point which I'm skipping because there is not much time. There is something also called a semantic analysis. I'm sure that all of you know about the semantic. It's like just to do with meaning. Semantic analysis, and then which takes into account, we call it mise en scène, MISE-EN-SCENE, mise en scène or mise en scène, French phrase. Basically, it means setting a scene. So whatever you need to set a scene, right? 4 aspects of mise en scène are light, costume, makeup, the sets, set, context of it, set, light, costume, makeup, put together, costume and makeup. And acting, but we don't call it acting, we call it figurative expressions, because figurative expressions, there could also be animals, there could also be various other things which might express, which might be expressive, not only essentially human beings are conscious acting. So figurative expressions. Semantic analysis, it doesn't have to be that my analysis is only semantic analysis, but a level of analysis. One of the levels is semantic engagement, where you engage with these 4 aspects of mise en scène very heavily. Setting, lighting, costume, makeup, and figurative expressions. One thing I forgot to mention is that in textual analysis, one of the major problems is representation. I mean, when our master's program has in the final semester a dissertation. So one full course is a dissertation. So you have to write 10 to 12,000 word dissertation. 3 chapters with introduction, conclusion, bibliography, acknowledgements. It's like a mini book writing training under supervision of teachers. So most of them, when they actually come up with proposals, research proposals for the dissertation, most of them, have this word for representation, or at least even if that does not literally appear, they want to do representation. Though we persuade them not to do that, and many of them by that time realize, and therefore they do not come. But many do as well. Now the problem with the representation model is that the assumption is that there is some kind of a reality which the film, the text, could also be a piece of literature, represents. And that is a problem. It is not a problem. It is quite productive, and it is quite productive in the initial days, and it is important to sustain that, because politics of representation is something which is important for us to stick to and constantly talk about. There is no doubt about it. But to do that exclusively and only do that is a little problem. And many a time we'd see, for instance, representation of the marginalized, representation of this and that. It sounds good. Victim kind of society, something which read with exploitations of various kinds. What you do is that you choose a particular topic, representation of A or B or C or D, which you know that basically in some kind of social reality is um, is 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 underprivileged, marginalized, exploited. What you do is that you choose scenes after scenes and you just demonstrate that how they have been exploited. Now that is not research because it's almost a kind of a sort of uh, anticipation that the researcher has and as examiner and as supervisors we have. So that becomes not an analysis but a kind of a demonstration. You know that level is important, but to that level one has to add also complications and problematizations of various kinds and bringing in and try to go beyond the text, and connect it possibly to various other texts. When I say connect it to various other texts, I sort of am reminded of common mistake that one actually does. I mean, we use the word intertextuality all the time, and we think that a text's reference to other texts is something which actually makes a text intertextual. But that's wrong actually. If you look into the original definition of intertextuality, Julia Kristeva's, for instance, what she says is that every text is intertextual. This is the very foundation of meaning. Meaning cannot emerge without a broader context or various texts lending their meanings to that kind of text. So every meaning, every extraction of meaning is something which is a productive offshoot of an active participation of the reader, possibly in case of a film, a spectator, who's caught in in this whole memory of reading and watching various other kinds of texts. So it doesn't have to be understood merely in terms of that text as constant conscious reference to other text. So meaning does not reside exclusively within the text, but meaning resides the way I extract it. It has to be understood also in terms of in two terms. One is, of course, the text's own, sometimes even unconscious reference or capability of raising association of other texts, but also my experience and certain mnemonics kind of memory framework through which I think and I extract meaning. Okay, so I think this is very productive for us to remember that every text is intertextual, rather than kind of a text referring reflexively, consciously referring to other text. Other very important kind of distinction that one possibly gives. Now, this is not something which is exclusive to film studies. I'm sure that those who have come from literature, history, and other humanities and social science disciplines, all of them know this very much. But I'm kind of reiterating for the sake of sort of pushing the future researchers and the potential the people who wish to do some work in the field of film studies to keep this in mind. For instance, another very interesting distinction that even advanced researchers, they are upon that and they avoid that, and they at times quite evasive of that issue, is this whole distinction between author and narrator. Author is somebody that you imagine as giving some kind of a coherence to all the texts that one has written or produced or made, right? I mean, keeping aside this whole problem of sort of imagining an author in case of film. For example, film is so collective kind of a production, unlike poet, for instance. There is also collective voices that always give a nudge to the poet or the story writer or the novelist, but that's in a different sense. In case of film, it's literally so many people actually working. So there is a fundamental debate around authorship of a film. But let us keep aside that. But if you think in terms of, let us take an example of literature, for instance, which is so dear to our hearts. We'll see that, so author is the person whom you may have seen, may not have seen, but you have some imagination of it, or at least some kind of a cohering body who wrote all these things. So there is somebody called Tagore, right, is the author of all of this. Narrator is a different category. Narrator is the voice of a particular text, which may change 5 years later, which may take a different position in the next text. And therefore, Tagore is the author, but in hundreds and thousands of texts that Tagore produced, in terms of songs, in terms of poems, in terms of novels and short stories and paintings, and one possibly can think of letters and all other kinds of things. There are different voices, and many of these could actually be contradicting each other as well, right? So whenever we think of the narrator, we think of the narratorial voice that is so very integrated inside or implied inside the text. The narratorial voice, the author is somewhat kind of a cohering figure, which even, one can put it jokingly, but one can even go to the extent of thinking in terms of a flesh and blood embodiment called Rabindranath Tagore, who wrote something, who went there, sort of made this presentation, gave this lecture, went to Shiraidaho, had a zamindari, built Shantiniketan. You can think of the person as well. Narrator is not that. And narrator, and both, of course, are subject to constructions, the way we construct it. And, of course, so Rolla Barthes talks about the birth of the reader, so the way we read it. Anyway, so this and one thing I want to talk about very briefly is about adaptation, because this is, so wherever I go, or if I'm invited to talk about film, especially in English literature departments, they say that, say something about adaptation, because we have, our students or many of our teachers, they're interested in film, and they usually write on adaptation. So you'd see in these adaptation studies and analysis very oriented around adaptation, how that is so very invested in narrative only, or the intentions of the author, or and in the original text and in the adapted film, contents basically, narrative, even form, quite sensitive, it's good. But what is absent is this whole issue of to what extent, or if at all, the narratorial voice is transferred from the literary text to the visual text. The film could be a television drama, could be a web series or whatever, because that angle of narratorial voice transfer, the narrative can be transferred, of course, not all of it. Of course, many things have to be. And if you read Satyajit Ray's Charulata Prasanga, for instance, which starts with the first line, Rudra Moshai abar pechone legechen, Ashok Rudra সমালোচনা করেছিলেন যে চারুলতা এটা আছে, ওখানে ওটা নেই, চারুলতা এটা ছিল, ওটা এখানে আছে, whatever. So Satyajit Ray is talking about how film has to do, sort of has a different language, so it has to engage in a different manner. It cannot follow the literary piece ditto, but still somewhat you can sort of negotiate the narrative. The narratorial voice is something which should be one of the major concerns of literature academics, primarily who write on adaptation. This is an old book, but quite good. If one reads only the introduction, even that would be quite productive. It's called Novel to Film by Brian McFarlane. I thought that I'll talk about adaptation because not all of you would possibly start writing from now about film, but having read a particular novel and then a film based on that novel or a piece of writing released in the theaters or watching on your laptop, you might think of actually writing on that as something which is an adapted text, right? So this should be actually one of the major concerns about transfer, adaptation of the narratorial voice as well, a narrator, not only of the narrative. That's important for us. I'm just left with just about 3 minutes, 5 minutes or so. There was one very important thing about tradition-modernity debate. I knew that I wouldn't have time to do justice to that, but it was a very intricate kind of debate. And, the gist of that argument is that tradition and modernity are usually taken as binaries and antagonized with each other. But that's not always right. How texts are also to be seen, particularly popular texts, are to be seen in terms of as machines which constantly represent the modern as renewal of tradition. And that is how one should actually understand how much there is this element of non-change in our society, because these texts are also machines which constitutes ourselves, subjects, That's one of the major critiques of a representational mode of analysis and method. Texts are not only representations, they do not only represent, they constitute. তারা শুধু প্রতিরূপায়ণ করে না, উপস্থাপনা করে না, তারা নির্মাণ করে। প্রতিটি পাঠ, প্রতিটি টেক্সট আমাদের প্রতিনিয়ত নির্মাণ করে চলে। এইটে বোঝার অত্যন্ত প্রয়োজন আছে তার যে নির্মাণের ক্ষমতা, সেটা ছোট করে দেখানো হয় কেবলই যদি তার উপস্থাপনার ক্ষমতাটা নিয়ে কথা বলতে পারে। এবং এই নির্মাণের কথা বলতে গিয়ে প্রথম যে কথাটা সবচেয়ে বেশি মনে আসে সেটা হচ্ছে সে ক্রমাগত কি করে is one of the major thematics that it actually tries to deal with all the time, especially the popular films, in which in one of his writings talks about 3 major positions in Indian film studies. I'll just give you the name of the essay because I do not have time to elaborate on that essay, but it's very informative. And if you're interested in Indian cinema and have a very quick synoptic account of the major positions in Indian cinema, you can actually read that essay and it will be very interesting. It's called The Politics of Cultural Address in a Transitional Cinema, a study of Indian popular cinema. It's by Ravi S. Vasudevan. My former teacher and of course was in CSDS, has now retired. It appears in Reinventing Film Studies, edited by Christian Gladhill and Linda Williams. So it's a piece it's freely available on the internet. Reinventing Film Studies, just look for Ravi Vasudevan's essay, in which he talks about 3 positions primarily in Indian film studies. One is represented by, there are a lot of people who actually talk about this, but representative would be somebody called Chidaranda Dasgupta, for instance, through the 40s down to the 70s and 80s, which is basically a huge critique of the Indian popular film. And the Indian popular film is all about a kind of a Dehati hinterland and the rural sensibility, the mang and the sindoor and the sudden appearance of the song. There's no logic. গল্পের গরু গাছে চড়ে এই অর্থে so it's like pre-modern, you know, so the people who are actually calling for the modern social narrativization of it, not the sudden appearance of the song, that kind of form. Chiranda Dasgupta and the Calcutta Film Society, so they would be a kind of an iconic representative of that. So it's a critique of the modern, right? And precisely because of that. So what becomes a point of critique of the pre-modern from a modern perspective? That is of Chiranda Dasgupta. This whole generation of Bhadraloks from the 30s and 40s. That precisely becomes a point of celebration for a person like Ashish Nandi, you know, who has written also about films. I'm sure that many of you know, like Intellectual Critics Guide to Indian Cinema, a slum's eye view of Indian politics, and who is also a strong critique of the modern sensibility, modern quote-unquote tyranny. And it says that, you know, I mean, so that is precisely the reason why the typical Hindi popular film is something needs to be celebrated, because it constantly critiques the modern. It's important to constantly critique the modern, right, etc. But of course, I mean, modern can be critiqued only from within the modern. So Hindi film, the alternative modern is within the modern. So Chidananda says that the Hindi popular film form is traditional. I'm in favor of the modern. Ashish Nandi says, I'm in favor of the tradition. Rural medicine, tribal modes of governance, all have been trampled by this, tyrannical machine called modernity, in which you can be non-modern in various ways, in Egyptian ways, in African ways, in tribal ways, but it can be modern only in the modern parliamentary democratic sense, which in itself is a kind of a problem. So he has a project, right? So he critiques the modern from the perspective of tradition. Dasgupta critiques tradition from the perspective of the modern. And then Ravi Vasudevan draws attention to a very important book, which is The Ideology of the Hindi Film by M. Madhava Prasad, which is once again freely downloadable from the internet, in which he says that, look how Madhava Prasad has demonstrated that both of these are actually part of a problematic sort of set of questions. And what is that? Is that they both assume tradition versus modernity. And then Madhav, in that book, by analyzing films after film, shows that what the Hindi film does, typical popular run-of-the-mill Hindi film does, masala film does, which you call social, is that it presents the modern as simply a renewal of the tradition. So if the heterosexual couple want to have a space, they want to elope and completely break the structure of feudal family, which is a major threat to tradition, right? So you see the whole narrative is about a kind of an adjustment, which actually leads to the last scene in which the two families which had jati dushmani with each other would actually stand up in a fight and then sort of bless the couple, and they would be united, and they would become part of that old feudal family structure. This is how tradition appropriates the modern. And there are various kinds of modern desire. The desire to find out a separate space for the heterosexual couple, a space for kiss, a space for, opening your own letter where everybody would not be able to read others' letters, etc. And how our society is to be understood in terms of a continuous sustenance of tradition. At least there is a kind of drive. And popular Hindi films are read as a kind of as almost kind of a machinic structure which does this. And the moment of the modern pleasure is nothing but a very subtle renewal of the tradition. I mean, I'm sure that I'm not able to drive home this point with much clarity, but I'm sure that I am able to provoke you into read that book and this particular essay. And since it's already, more than 6 minutes of my allotted time, I end here. I know that there are many loose ends. If we have time, we can have a discussion. Otherwise, we can call it a day. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for your most valuable, inspiring, and informative lecture on field studies research. Lecture. Now it's open from any question or any inquiry. Please proceed one by one in this house, please.
But I think there is no time, right? Is there any time?
Well, no, sir.
There is no time. Yes, of course. So I think I should take leave, and there must be next speaker waiting. So I think I should make way.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. I have a question, sir.
Okay, please go ahead.
I have a request, rather, not question. So, if you could please, you gave a value-added lecture in today's session. So, could you please provide study material of today's session, of today's lecture?
I have mentioned some, of course, but I could also mail to Professor Chatterjee or to the Kalinagar Mahavidyalaya's mail ID some of the material. Sure. Thank you.
Okay,
I'll do that.
okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It was great to be with you and share some of my thoughts. Thanks a lot.
Excuse me, sir. Sir, this is not a question. Sir, I just want to get some input from you over the matter that how films can be made more culturally sensitive. Sir, if you focus on this particular aspect in 2 or 3 lines, sir, it will be very benefited for me, sir. Culturally sensitive, how films can be made.
How culturally sensitive
how films can be made culturally sensitive.
So, I mean, let me just repeat. You said how films or how phones?
Yeah, how films, sir.
Telephones.
Films. F-I-L-M-S, films, yes.
Films, yes, that is what I'm saying, yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Of course, I mean, how can I say that? Because, I mean, the greatest filmmakers cannot also tell you how filmmakers can be made more culturally sensitive. I mean, your idea of cultural sensitivity must be different from others. What you mean by cultural sensitivity, etc. What you
yes.
So it's very difficult, and it depends on it has to come out of some kind of a polemic and exchange of ideas. There is no one formula. I'm sure that you know about this. It's impossible.
That is a relative concept, sir. That should be understood from the viewpoint of relativism, because cultural sensitivity is different for different people. You mean to say that?
Yes. A and B is what at all is cultural sensitivity. That is something which I need to understand more personally in order to answer this question.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now I invite Mrs. Prerna Basu for give formal vote of thanks in this session. Please, Ms. Prerna Basu.
Shall I wait? I think you've already voted, thanked me and thanked me enough, which is fine. Okay, so I think I can leave. Thank you.
Sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And now I am hand over the microphone to Niladri Purkai sir and request to please start the next session. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Subroto sir. Am I audible to all of you? Am I
Yes.
audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes.
Maybe it's a delay. I think so. Our resource person is not here right now. So until I have to wait before I start. I'm not getting, ma'am. Just a minute. Give me 5 minutes.
Niladri, take a break of 5 minutes. Then next session start.
Okay, sir.
Niladri, ma'am already joined.
Okay, sir. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome to this afternoon session number 4. My name is Nilati Purokait and I am the librarian of Kalinagar Mahavidyalaya and I will be serving as your moderator today. You will be having a presentation from Dr. Bonali Roy Chaudhary, ma'am, Assistant Professor, Netaji Open University, and she will deliver a topic on open resource access. Ma'am, please welcome
Thank you.
for this session.
Thank you.
I would like to welcome to all participants for this session. Now I am requesting Dr. Pradeep Kumar Mandal to introduce the resource person. Sir, please. Dr. Pradeep Kumar Mandal is here. Sorry for disturbance. I'm not getting it. Dr. Pradeep Kumar Mandal, who was supposed to be introduced, ma'am. So I am taking the charge for introducing her. At the moment, Dr. Barnali Roy Chaudhary, an assistant professor in Netaji Subhas Open University Department of Library and Information Science. She was formerly the librarian of Acharya Jagadish Chandra College. In the field of library and information science, she has received a JRF Fellow Award from UGC and a gold medal from the University of Bardhaman. She has several national and international publications, along with a book from UNESCO titled Resource Optimization. On the project developing SLM toolkit on the open, Chaudhary also served as a project fellow at Commonwealth Educational Media Center for Asia. She has spent the last 10 years working in the field of free and open resource software, automated library management system, knowledge organization, and information retrieval. She completed the initiative to create an institutional repository for open educational resource at Netaji Subhas Open University. Through various capacity building workshops and initiatives, she has trained over 400 professors, associate professors, and assistant professors, along with librarians, on the use of creation of and curation of open educational resource for universities like Bilaspur University, B.R. Ambedkar Open University, HELP University, Malaysia, etc. Welcome, ma'am, to this session.
Thank
And
you, Mr. Niladji.
now stage is yours, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much. See, today this session is going to discuss on different aspect of open access resources, and which is very much related with the research and the other developmental work in our day-to-day teaching learning procedure. So I think I'm audible, and please allow me to share my screen so that I can represent my views and thoughts through a presentation. I think it is visible now.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. So the formal title of this presentation is Open Access Research Assistance Tools, because you all are empaneled yourself to have a course on research methodology. So what are the tools and what are the services or products which are available in the open science and the open access practice and the open access initiatives? So these are the main concerns. So open access research assistance tools, actually it is nothing. Just see, in our day-to-day life, just different kind of data and research tool is being generated or curated by a researcher. So what is the logic behind this research support tools? Because each and every day, each and everywhere, whenever we are going through the teaching learning procedure, we have to do different kind of researches. So we need the previous literatures to read, to analyze, and to generate different kind of research articles, because we are not from any kind of we are not of any kind of that much inventor kind of thing. So when once in a fine morning we will wake up and we will write a new concept, it is not like that. We, the academicians, we all are depending on the previous literature. By analyzing it, by reading that materials, we are trying to reanalyze, we are trying to remix the entire thing, and we are inculcating the new work, which is a byproduct of that of those previous literature. So this is a wonderful place where we can even search different kind of research support tools through which we can read, analyze, and generate different kind of research articles in an open manner. So please, someone is actually
Mr. Kiran Shubha. Mr. Kiran Shubha, please turn off your mic, please. Kiran Shubha. Okay, ma'am, please proceed.
Thank you very much. So this is the main logic behind all these research support tools, because we have to deal with different kind of tools and service and products which are actually the product of internet and the in a general terminology, it is one kind of the result of World Wide Web. So we are actually dealing with the tools and services in form of products to gear up our research work. So this is the main thing. So see why I'm talking about the open access, because whenever we are using the terminology open, it means open in terms of accessibility. It should be available and accessible by all at the right time in their place, own place, etc. And with the relevant data itself, definitely. It is not like the different kind of irrelevant data which should be there. No, not like this. So open, it should be accessible in an open manner. Each and everyone can download that material, or each and everyone can free to use, reuse, and remix those materials. So this is the main terms. Second one, the time. Actually, whenever I'm talking about the time bound or the open in terms of time, so it will be 24/7 mode. Document should be available into 24/7 mode, so that whenever and whatever I just want to inculcate, or I just want to analyze, I just want to seek or retrieve the information, so that topic should be in my hand in any time. So in my own space, in my own place, that should be a very important thing. See, today I'm in just another place which is far beyond from my working place as well as from my home. I'm taking this class and just in the roadside. So this is my comfort zone. That is, I'm taking this session in my own time, in my own pace and place. So such kind of flexibility should be there. And this kind of flexibility actually means by the terminology open. And see, the very important part, that is programming. Programming, it means whenever we are using any kind of open material, so it should be an open platform. That means I'm coming in my next slide, what is actually I mean to say with the programming word. So it is actually depending on some technicalities. Technicalities like software, technicalities like hardware and the standards, etc. As well as the people. People means anyone can, by considering caste, creed, or any kind of economic condition. So any people, any one can have that information in an open manner and at any time in 24/7 mode at their own pace and place with the help of the open programming. So this is the main funda of openness. Whenever I'm talking about the terminology open access, it means it is nothing but a provision to download, a provision to install, a provision to copy, to distribute, to search in a full text mode. See this one. This is the actual terminology I am talking with. Read, download, copy, distribute, print, search, or link to the full text articles. And the free availability on the public internet. Open in terms, it is freely available, definitely freely available. We are not actually we are not intended to pay any money or any kind of thing for this. We just need our internet connection. So documents or resources which are available in the open platform on the public internet, it should be like this. So the provision open access, giving you the permission to read, to download, to copy, to distribute or print or search any kind of documents which are freely available on the public internet. And see, one greatest thing of this kind, that is, it is giving the indexing also in a free manner. So if a database is available for the public, then the entire document of that particular product or particular service is available for the public itself. So the main concept is to read, download, copy, distribute. That is the one kind of permission they're giving you. That is the prior permission to use. So open access, through the provision of the open access, one can have the information in any time by at their own pace, at their own place, by using open programming by any people. So this is the main philosophy behind the terminology open. So the main thing is why we are talking about the open access. Two things are actually haunting us. One is digitization, which is overload of information, which causes overload of information. And second was the increasing price of scholarly communication. Scholarly communication includes different kind of inflation rate of the journal articles and increasing price of the books itself. See, loss of textbooks we are unable to buy, even we are unable to access even, just because of its huge amount. So huge price is there. So these two things are actually haunting us to have the resources for our teaching learning procedure in day to day. And what is our aim? It is not about equality. See, it is not about the equality. We are not in our age now. We are not in a stage even now to achieve the equality. What we need, that is equity, equitable quality education for all. Equitable quality education for all. That is our main motto. So if we are talking about the equitable quality education, then we must have to have the provision of the open access. Because for the marginalized people who are actually the resident of different kind of the rural areas and the marginalized areas, so they are not even economically, sometimes they are not even in case of urban areas also, lots of people are not even economically powerful to have their own education. So the main philosophy behind this open access practice is to availability of the resources in an open manner, so that the lack of resources is not be a big barrier for the learners who are actually willing to learn something, who are willing to have their own education, have their own degree. So through this platform, through this philosophy, we can achieve our best. See, these are the different connotations of open innovations. Number one, for the academicians, who we are the researcher, we are the learners, we are the facilitators. So in that case, different kind of open access journals are there, open contents are there, open data, open communication, education, educational resources, open standard, open source software, and so on and so forth. So these are the connotations of open innovation and practice. And why we are talking in an open in manner, that is openness, to achieve such kind of practices. Say, in case if it is a journal, if it is a content, if it is a data or any kind of communication, or the open educational resources, or the open standard or open source software, whatever it may be, this should follow such kind of openness. See, the legal openness. Legal it means without having any kind of copyright, or which actually gives you the permission to use those materials without having the thoughts of copyright infringement. Copyright infringement should not be there. So to get rid of such kind of matter, which is very much related with the legal issues, with the content, we may use different kind of open content with the open licensing system. So legal issues should not be there. Then economically free, it means it is freely available in the public internet. And socially open, it means if we are actually following the path of openness and following the path of open access initiative in such a way, we will not actually infringing anyone's copyright. In such a way, we are actually meant in a practice where we are maintaining academic integrity, which may increase our social prestige also. So in such a way, socially open, that is the openness. And in terms of standard software and system, and in academic world, it is openness in terms of educational resources, different type of courses and assessment. to ensure, see what is the logic behind this. What is the logic behind this? Is this the sustainable development 2030 goal, equitable quality education for all, access to information for all, democratization of knowledge? So these are the things actually we have to achieve with the help of universal participation, reuse and redistribution, availability and accessibility on the of the resources. That is the main thing. So whenever I am talking about the open access license, so this kind of technical openness is very much required. That is, openness should be followed in case of licensing pattern, in case of open standard, in case of even open format. See, if I am going to create or generate a open access material, open educational material, then I should have the knowledge what is actually open license material. Number one, which actually gives you the freedom to use in a free manner, so that you can get rid of the this kind of copyright and copyleft and fair dealings type of thing, as well as the copyrighted issues. And license for the technical openness, it is the different kind of open licenses, like open license, open hardware license, open source software license, creative common license for the text material itself, then open game license and open database license. So these are the open licenses are there. By using those, you can achieve, or you can create, you can generate even a new material. Number one. Second, you have to follow such kind of licenses. See, Apache license, BSDIF license, GNU public license. So these are the license actually. See, we all are using Mozilla public license, that is Mozilla Firefox browser. It is actually under the Mozilla public license 2.0. So this kind of software we have to actually identify. Different kind of open standard, like WWW consortium, they are generating the open standard. So by following different kind of open standard, by following different kind of open licensing, we are in a way actually to create, to generate, to use open educational resource or open access material. See, the main theme is open. Each and every material is comes under the open educational resources, whether it is a textual thing or other thing. But the main thing is the open access initiatives as a whole. Under the purview of this open access initiatives, we must have the information about the open access format, but because you are actually not allowed to use Microsoft Office product to create a free and open source material, isn't it? You are not even allowed to do that, because with the having others copyright, you are not actually declaring your own very own content as the or under the open licensing system, that anyone can use that material, or anyone can remix, revise, distribute and retain the rights, because you are using Microsoft document, which is a proprietary software. So in that case, what is actually we are dealing with? We have to follow the open licensing system. Have to follow the software which released on the open licensing system. We have to create those content which actually follows under this periphery or the umbrella of this open format, like PNG, FLAC, WebM, then HTML, GIF, CSS. So these are the file format you can use to create your own open content or open educational resources. See, for the very first beginning, I'm just trying to articulate the matter of the open access journal. So see, in the previous slide, what actually I just wanted to communicate with you, what I'm trying to share with you, that is a provision. Open access is a provision, number one, by using which we can have, or we can access, or we can avail maximum number of open educational resources, as well as resources for our research area. There are lots of connotations of open access that also actually gives you the impetus of the open access journal, open data, open science, open educational resources, open hardware and software, etc. So these are the peripheries. And when we are trying to use the terminology that is open, it means open in terms of by following different kind of open source software. Actually, open source software actually gives you the source codes as well as the binary code. By you actually open means you are actually allowed to use, you are allowed to reuse those material, even you are allowed to create your own material by using those materials. So these kind of flexibilities are there. If it is there, then you must have to have a uniform guideline to create, generate, or curate. To use or to follow the unified or uniform principles, we are actually going with the open source software. We are going with the open standard, open format, etc. Because until and unless we can't distribute even the content which actually I want to distribute in a free and public domain, I am unable to do that, because by using others' copyrighted material, I can't declare that material, or though it is a my concept, though it's analyzed by me, but I have used others' copyrighted material. So in such manner, I'm not allowed to distribute that material under the open access initiatives. To do so, we have to, if I want to publish or document under the open access provision or open access initiatives, then I must have to follow the all philosophies which are interrelated with each other, like the formats, like the software, like open licensing system, and the other formats of the open licensing system, a different kind of file formats also. So this is the main provision, main words and main philosophies of the open access. Now I'm actually creating the next discussion on the particular resource basis, because see, as we are the researcher, we are talking about the research methodology, short-term program or international seminar or workshop, whatever it may be. So what we are actually trying to do, we are actually trying to follow the methods, tools and technology are using in the time of the research to conduct the entire research work. So in that case, if I am thinking about the resource or to what which are actually gearing up my entire research procedure, the first and foremost thing is the journal, isn't it? So see, the journals like published by the Taylor and Francis, the different kind of journals published from different giant publisher who are actually they born to create money, they actually born to do the monetary benefit. So in that case, the revenue cost, the subscription cost is very much high, which is actually not possible to us in individual level, as well as sometimes it is not possible also from the institutional level also. So in that case, what we can follow the open access journals, which is really freely accessible, free to read, free to download, copy, distribute, print, search, or link. Even you are free to download its full text version. The entire full text article is freely available for you. So what we have to know, that is, we have to know the actual sources of that particular journal or particular article where we can access the materials. There are two provisions actually for the open access kind of thing. Number one is gratis open access, which refers online access, which is free of charge, which is free to read only. And another one is libre open access, which refers to the online access free of charge, plus some additional reuse rights like free to read, free to use, like this. So what you can do, you can use the that gratis and libre, it is actually, we can use the terminology that is green open access and gold open access. So in case of green open access, which is I am actually referring here as a libre open access. So what are actually the philosophies we are following? That is self-archiving. See, you have a publication in Taylor and Francis or IEEE. So in that case, you have submitted a manuscript of you from yourself. They have given you the different kind of suggestions from the reviewer desk. You have edited that material accordingly, and then you have submitted the edited material, and there if it is all is fine, then they have published the document. This is a main thing. So what you have in your hand, that is a manuscript. In case of self-archiving, it is actually one kind of institutional repositories by following different kind of repository software, which is available in the free and open source software platform. So a repository which is in which you can submit the manuscript, it means the unedited version. But prior to that, you have to read the guidelines and the terms and conditions of the publisher itself. Some publishers actually giving you the permission that having the embargo period from 6 months to 2 years, you can self-archive that material. And some publishers are not giving you the permission to even self-archive your article in your own institutional repository. So in that case, we are facing the problem of the double dipping. Double dipping is one kind of thing that you are, whenever you are writing an article to publish in different giant publishers with the help of the different giant publishers, your institution actually giving you the space, your institution giving you the time and the apparatus to create that kind of resource or the research product. And that particular product, which is published in different profit-making companies, even your institution is compelled to buy again that product. So what is double dipping? Your institution giving you the cost of to generate that particular article to you, and again in terms of your time, in terms of the apparatus, in terms of the table, chair and laptop and desktop and the electricity bill like this, and your institution again giving the money to that publisher to buy that product. So such kind of double dipping is always there. So to avoid such kind of double dipping, what we can do, we can follow the open access practice. And self-archiving, which is actually a product of the green open access, which is a service of the green open access, we can follow the same. No peer review is there. I already told you that if you are giving the manuscript, there no peer review is there. So institutional or disciplinary, it is a pre-print of the article, isn't it? It is a pre-print version of your article, and embargo period for from 6 months to 2 years is there. And in case of gold open access, it is only about the publishing. It is not about the self-archiving. See, self-archiving means contributing your manuscript to your institutional repository or in your web page, on your own homepage. But in case of gold open access, it means you are publishing a article with the undergoing of the process of peer reviewing, which is freely or permanently available in the open domain, and there must have some kind of APC, that is article processing charge, or they are actually giving you the different kind of conditions. So such kind of gold open access, so green open access and gold open access, that you have to choose anyone. But I am actually from the core of my heart as the practitioner of open access, I'm following the green open access path. Now see the provision of the open educational resources. We have our own views on open access journals, because journals are very much important for our research work, But in our day-to-day teaching learning procedure, in our day-to-day life, which is actually bread and butter of our own life. So in that case, what we are going to do, we are actually following some resources to serve our learners for the development of our institution. So this kind of trio is there, isn't it? One is at the top body, at the apex body of the triangle. It is institution. In one hand, there are learners, and another one there are resources. And we, the faculties, who are the library professionals, or any other people who are actually contributing themselves in the academic world, what we are doing, we are facilitating and we are bridging the gap between these resources as well as the between the learners. So this is the main thing we are following in our day-to-day life. So here the resources is the main thing, and as you well aware about that, the fact that the scarcity of the scarcity of the fund as well as the increasing price of the resources, that makes a big constraint to have the resources in any kind of learners, whether they are from the marginalized area, whether they are from the very privileged area. So if we are able to cater or to facilitate maximum of resources, maximum number of resources from the open access platform, that will make more, that will make actually the entire thing is very easy for the learners itself, for the faculty itself, for the institution itself. So each and every one can have that information, that resources through which we are trying to transmit our knowledge, isn't it? So, open educational resource, it is actually any kind of educational materials. See, any kind of materials which are available in the public domain under the publication of the open license. In the public domain, it means in the free, which are actually free to download, free to copy, free to use, free to reuse, available under the public internet and under the open license. I'm coming in on my next slides, what is actually open license. So see, the main thing is the matter, the content which are legally and economically free and free to copy, to use. And see, the most important word is to adapt. See this one is to adapt and reshare them. Adapt means we can edit the material as per our two learners' requirement. We can recontextualize it as per our institutional requirements. That is the main thing. So open educational resources are those resources which might be editable, which might be available in an editable form. And that's why we are following those formats which are actually giving you the provision to edit your material, isn't it? That is FLAC, MGPP, then the PNG. So these all are in editable format. Even we are not using PDF version of our content in case of creating OER material. We are using ODF version, that is open office kind of thing. It is a parallel distribution of the PDF, which actually available in the free and open source software platform. So ODF is actually very much important to follow to create any kind of, see, sometime in case of writing theory or doing a portrait, or even sometime in case of portraying our thoughts and views through the diagram or through any kind of graphical representation, it is very much needed and very much important to save the material in a PDF format, in a picture format. So in that case, PDF is very much well known to us as a Microsoft product. But whenever it is it comes under the open access periphery, then it will be by following the ODF format. There are two very good software are available in open domain, that is LibreOffice and the OpenOffice.org. So by using, instead of that Microsoft Word, you can use this LibreOffice and OpenOffice to create your own OER material. See the ranges of OER materials, the textbook to the curricula, syllabi, lecture, notes, assignment, test, then different kind of projects, audio, video, animation, etc. And these are not my words, actually these words are borrowed from the UNESCO Paris principles. So such kind of resources which comes under the umbrella term of the open educational resources, which ranges from textbook to curricula. See, whenever a student is enrolling himself or herself for a course, then the syllabus of that course, the curricula of this course, the lecture note, the assignment, sorry, different tastes, different question papers, project, notes available in the audio format, in the video format, in an animated format, in a pictorial representation, in a graphical representation. Each and everything actually comes under the educational resources. Sorry. In such way, open educational resources are also from ranges from the textbook to assignments. Just a minute. Thank you. See what kind of rights actually giving you the provision of OER, the provision of open access philosophy gives you the rights actually. See, it is not that the kind of thing which doesn't have any kind of copyright of things. Those contents which are declared as the open content or which declared as the open data or open article, it is not actually without having any kind of, it is not like that without having any kind of copyright. It is very much clear that at the time of creating a content, as content contributor, you are holding the rights. Yes, you are holding the rights. So copyright is being already implied, already generated with the document itself. So any kind of copy, any kind of download, that is without having the content contributors public permission is considered as the copyright infringement. But in open access policy, in open access publication or practice or initiatives, what actually they are giving you? They are giving you the rights, prior rights to reuse, to revise, to remix, to redistribute, and to return. These 5 R's. Rights of the 5 R's actually. So this is the rights they are offering you priorly, without having any kind of request or without having any kind of, that is a prior permission to you to reuse, to revise, to remix, to distribute, and to retain the rights. So these are the rights actually. Reuse means use the content in its unaltered form. You can read it, you can download it, you can copy it, but don't edit the material. That is the reuse. Revise means you can adapt. It means adapt means you can adopt the material with editing. So if you have any kind of provision that is actually giving you the chance to recontextualize, if there is a provision to edit that particular material as per your own learner's understandability, then you can do that. You can even modify, you can improve or alter the content even. See, there are different lots of text are available or articles and books are available on the Sundarban itself. Sundarban. It's a wonderful, it has its own importance as the geographical view, as per the botanical point of view, that mangrove forests are there. Even it has a high kind of importance as the geological ecosystem. But see what you can do. There are lots of things are there, isn't it, with the textual material. What you can do after gone through the entire literature itself, you can add extra PPT. You can add a video which is very much relevant with the topic itself. Even you can add a audio of the Royal Bengal Tigers roar, so that your learner is one kind of, they're having the most interest, they can grow their own interest to have that lesson by their own. It is not to by not by pushing them, it is they are actually the, we can consider them as a self learner. In such a way, what we can do, we can recustomize the old document. Yes, we can customize the old document as per our learner's requirement. What is the condition? Just only condition is there that you have to acknowledge the actual content contributor. That you are, whenever you are giving your analysis part, your contribution, that's fine. The entire document is under to retain your right. That is under your periphery. But whenever you are talking about the terminology, whenever you are actually using the documents to generate or to do a new content, to write a new content, then you have to acknowledge the actual content contributed. That is the only condition for the open access philosophy or for the open access practice. So you can revise it, you can remix the, or combine the original or revised content with other here also. See, one article which is very much important with the one concept is very much important for, within an article. So what you can do, by elaborating by or by describing that particular um, topic, you can add another article with that, but with that article. So you can combine the original work as well as you can revise the content, you can create something new, you can modify it, you can improve it, you can remix it, and at the end of the day, as a product, you can redistribute that material by keeping access to the materials after learning event. So these are the provisions actually we are actually or open access publishing or open access initiatives giving you. So these are the legal issues actually we are facing. See, these are the rights we are enjoying with the provisions of open access. These rights are very much enjoyable, but why these rights are giving or contributors are giving you such kind of rights in priority basis? Content contributors are giving you the prior permission to use their content, to revise their content, to remix their content, to distribute their content, to retain rights of their content. Such kind of rights they are giving you, but against one condition, that is to acknowledge the actual author, by acknowledging the actual author. But see, what are the legal issues actually we are dealing with? Such kind of copyright matter, fair use, and the matter of fair dealing, which is really complex by their nature, and which comes under the umbrella term of the intellectual property rights, that which includes copyrights, patent, trademark, intellectual property right, geographical division, etc., and the design, etc. So each and every one has their own kind of right retention matter. But in case of copyrighted material, whenever we are talking about the textual material, we are talking about the copyrighted material. So for the copyrighted material, we are actually following the matter of open access and the open license. So these are the licenses. You can see here this one kind of logo is there. This is CC. See this one, CC. This CC license is there. So in case of CC license, this one, it is actually license of the logo of the Creative Commons company itself. Creative Commons is a non-profit organization of US. They are actually facilitating 6 kind of licenses for this open document. So what are the six kind of licenses? Number one, CC, that is Creative Commons own logo, Creative Commons CC, their own logo. BY means you are, see, this is the picture of a man or a human being. It means you have to acknowledge by whom it is being created. You have to acknowledge those person by whom it is being prepared. So CCBY is a very important and very flexible licensing pattern through which our content contributor giving you all kind of permission to use, including derivative works. Even if any document has such kind of logo with him or her own work, then they are giving the users prior permission to all kinds of users, including derivative work. It means including to create a new work. Second one is C, that is CC, BY, NC. So up to CC and BY you can have the information. But for NC, it is NC means non-commercial, which provides building upon and remixing, but not for the commercial purpose. That gives you the permission, prior permission, to use that materials also for the remixing purpose also. But it would not be available to gain any kind of money making matter, or it means it is not a it is for the non-profit area. So CCBYNC is there. Another one is attribution. It means CCBY and SA. It means attribution alike. That is share alike, which allows building upon and remixing the work even for commercial purpose also. Share alike, that gives the permission to the user to build upon the remixing the work for commercial purpose also. So anyone can do the commercial work with the help of this, of the document which actually published under the CC BY SA licensing code. See, the next one is CC BY ND, attribution non-derivatives. And the another one is CC BY NC ND. So NC and ND, see, in case of NC, you all are well known about the NC, that is non-commercial. Another one is I'm repetitively uttering, that is ND, it means non-derivatives. Non-derivatives means you can't create a new work in your name by using that material. You are not allowed. Actually, content contributor is not allowing you to do this, do the editing purpose, or to create a new materials, a new derivative work by using documents which actually published under the CC BY NC ND licensing pattern. And another one is, see, the most restricted, it is not flexible even, it is most restricted is this CCBY NCND. The most restrictive kind of journal is CCBY NCND. And another one is NCSA, it means non-commercial share alike, which provides for building upon and remixing, but not for commercial purpose. It is not for commercial purpose. So these 6 flavors of Creative Commons licensing system is there, through which a content contributor can already publish his or her documents under such kind of licensing system. See, one document is bearing with the CCBY-NC logo. That means you have to understand that content contributor is giving you permission to use, or it means to copy, to download that particular material. You can remix it, or you can rebuild it as per your own new concept, but you can't make money by using that particular material. So that should be there, that why it is BYND. So BY means each and everywhere you can see the terminology BY is there. BY, 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 BY. BY means it means that is acknowledging someone. It means acknowledging a actual content contributor, and you are giving the permission to use, to reuse, to remix, to revise, and to retain the rights of that particular material. So here you can see. See, here you can see that the journey has begun with the copyright itself, isn't it? With the help of this copyright. See, then I'm talking about the some right reserved. It means author is giving you prior permission to use, reuse, and remix and revise. But author, up to that extent, up to which a author or the content contributor is allowing you, isn't it? So some rights are reserved. And PD, it means public domain. So nowadays, each and every document, those who are actually available in the open platform, that actually comes under the public domain. Actually, in case of public domain, you are actually you're in a provision that copyright actually content contributor giving you all kind of permission, all kind of permission, even you waive all copyright and related rights also. So this kind of flexibility, openness actually following is followed by the uh, Creative Commons licensing pattern. And from this picture, you can see the most open license, that is CC0, that means at public admin, then CC BY, then CC BY SA, and the most restrictive one is CC BY ND, CC BY and CC BY NC SA, and NC ND. So these are the list. It is actually a workflow of most open to least open. Now, what actually we are gone through the provision of open access material. We are having the information of the open access journals. I have actually information on the legal issues actually we are actually dealing with, isn't it? So there are lots of confusion even nowadays also. What is actually Creative Commons license? What are the different aspects and what are the different nooks and corners of open access initiatives which actually bother the matter of legal issues or the Creative Commons issues? Actually, what I have seen that we don't have seen each and every material which is actually retrieved by the public internet or the from the any browser, that is not free material. If there is any logo of this kind, any logo of this kind is available, that means the book is published under the Creative Commons licenses, which is for the people, of the people, and by the people. So such kind of initiatives is very much important. See, in just after some couple of days, what we have tried um, to buy a document. It is not document, a book, which actually cost 56 to 58,000 rupees in our domain, which is really not possible to us to buy or to have the resource with us. Then what actually it is not possible for the student itself to buy the material even, but it is very essential material. What I did, I just find the material. If PDF version of any is available in Note, then I just forwarded it to them through the WhatsApp group. What is it a right process? No, never. This is actually copyright infringement. This is actually copyrighted image. I've not even seen that material in any OER platform even. I'm not seeking the information on OER platform even, but it is available. So my so it is what is my wish that is being fulfilled, but what is my philosophy that is not being followed by me. This is the problem. If we are going to search that particular material in open world, that should be a good practice. That would be a good practice. See, so in case of conducting our own research, if we are following the open path, open access initiative to collect the data first, to analyze the data second, to create and curate the new data itself, that would by following different open licensing system, by following different open software, by using different kind of software products and services. So such kind of things, such kind of product will be generated as the OER metric. So now to search, to have the information, to have the resources, what we can do. So this is the searching OER tools. And see, at first we have to identify which kind of tools we are actually seeking for. Number one, open textbook, then full course test, then course materials, lectures, lesson plans, different audio, video lectures, and the games itself. So lots of connotations of the educational resources and different file format and forms are available for the OER tools. And there are ample chances to opt maximum number of resources. Let's start with the sources of OER. Number one, different kind of learning object repositories are there, like university-based repositories, open courseware, search engine of OER, subject-specific repositories, etc. Then different kind of multimedia OER is there, like textbook, video, audio, images. And the entire full course like MIT Courseware, Open Courseware Consortium, Open Learning Initiative, Sailor Foundation, Tufts University, Open Courseware are there. Actually, these are the free and open source software as well as open data for the further research. See, these are the list of the learning object repositories. University-based repositories like MIT, Open Learn, University of California, Open Courseware repositories of OER like the Consortium for Educational Communication, NPTEL, Marlot, etc. Different search engine like Commonwealth of Learning Directory of Open Educational Resources, that is DOER.col.org. Creative Commons itself has their own page for the education. Foxomatic, they have their own page for the information. Subject-specific OER repositories like Health Education Asset Library, Stanford University School of Engineering, Tufts University, etc. So these are the repositories through which we can have the maximum number of information. And these are the freely available, see, without having the tension of any kind of copyright things. So for the copyright things, actually, we are following the legal issues of the copyright things. We all have our open licensing system. We are actually, if we are going to use those materials which are available in the public internet or public domain, it must have the provision for the open standard, for the open format and and other related open access software, open source software. So such kind of environment should be there. See, this is a wonderful source, that is directory of open access journal, which is an open global trusted and index journal directory. It's not a particular journal, see. It is a directory of open access journal through which, through this search box, what we can do, we can search in journal level, in article level also. If the name of the journal is little bit matched with the journal itself, then it will be retrieve maximum number of journal or the exact figure. But if it is the article level, then what we have to choose, we have to click on this article level button, then it will retrieve the documents from the article level. But The main thing is which type of resources are there. See, this is the statistics from 60 languages, 130 countries represented, journals without APCs and journals with APC, and the other journal are available in this database itself. So it is not a matter of joke, really. So DOAJ is, or it means Directory of Open Access Journal, is a very important, is a very pertinent resource to use in your research and developmental procedure. See another one, the research directory of access or directory of open access repositories, the door, open door. So the directory of open access repositories, which actually gives you enter ground of the open access repository. It is not about the open access journal. It is not about the open access thesis and dissertation. It is not about the open access book. It is all about the different kind of repositories. It's a directory of open access repositories. By clicking on the search button, you can opt maximum number, ample number of research articles from this sites. Registry of open access repositories. From here, you can register your university's name or college's name for the education purpose as well as for the registration purpose itself. So this is the place where we can register ourselves also. Then another provision is to open data. Open data, what is open data? See, in case of science stream, or even in case of stream of commerce, which actually imparting the statistical part itself, isn't it? Open data, or this actually that is also the all a bunch of data, a bunch of interrelated data even, that can be freely used, shared by anyone at any time, anywhere, for any purpose. That is the main provision of the open data. And Open Knowledge Foundation, they have created the open data site in 2005 to provide both a succinct explanation and a detailed definition of open data. So this is the page, see, okfn.org open data. So what actually open data giving you? They are giving you the geodata, cultural data, science data, financial data, statistics data, weather data, environment data, and transportation data. So data which are very much important. They are giving you such kind of data with you for the full implication of the open access philosophy in science, in statistics area also. See, another one is a good source where we can search different kind of literature, that is Bailfield Academic Search Engine. From this page, you can see 302517625 documents from 9,770 content providers. These 9,770 content providers, from those content providers, we can have the information on our research area. So it has their advanced search option, browsing, search history, so that they can recapitulate, they can formulate their own kind of database. See, with the help of the search history, they're actually recapitulating the words, particular words, which are actually used in several times in a repetitive mode, and that should be a very much important word actually. So base actually giving us the platform through which we can discover, we can retrieve maximum number of journal, maximum number of articles. Another one good search engine is Code, that is connecting repositories. See, from this area, you can see 207-255-818 from papers around the world. From all over the world, they are actually creating a database through which they are giving you the provision that you can search our database for your research work only. So this is one of the greatest achievement actually made by the open access practitioner, so that anyone can have the information to on their particular topic, on the required topic. So this is the core page, and see, it is you will be astonished that the entire thesis and dissertation in full text mode is available through this oatd.org. See the oatd.org. So that is the wonderful provision. Even see, we are actually working on the dissertation topics. We are working on the topics which are very much one kind of vibe itself. We are actually dealing with the actually we are researching on that particular topic. So in that case, if there is any kind of thesis and dissertation is available or not, if it is available, then what are the provisions our seniors has already been made for that, so we can have those information from these sites. So open access thesis and dissertation. Another one is the open verse, which is actually content under the Creative Commons, and they're giving us the permission to have information or data in terms of 600 million items from their images, from their audios itself. So different kind of category and different kind of resources are available in the open manner. Lots of things are there. Actually, I have no shortage of time to inculcate all this or to portray all the sites. But see, these are the sites are very much useful for the science itself, for the humanities ground, and for the interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary subject like Hathi Trust, Base, Knowledge Unlatched, Core Humanities Commons, CC Search, Public in Library and Science, etc. So these are the sources like Open Textbook Library, National Academy, PG Pathshala, OER Commons. These are very important textbook retrieval. Another one is Open Textbook Library, National Academies. These are the wonderful place to work on. Images like Creative Commons, Comfide, Flickr, and Clipart, as well as the Google is the wonderful area through which we can retrieve the image. I'm coming with the demo itself. Just allow me 5 to 6 seconds to complete this presentation even. So these are the forms of videos. These are the sites where we can visit to see the video which are related to my research topic. That is, first one is Shade, second one is YouTube. YouTube have their own provision. I'm coming after this presentation how we can retrieve YouTube videos which comes under the Creative Commons license from the YouTube itself. Then Vimeo, we have Pixabay, we have etc. And for the audio, we have LibriVox, Zamendo, SoundClear sometime, and a mixer, etc. So these are the provisions what we have. And wonderful literature searching tools are Code Discovery, EndNote, Legischolar, Open Access Button, Peer, and the Scholars, SkyHub, etc. Apart from that, we have Unpayable, which is actually a database of 30 lakhs free scholarly article. So in that case, see, you can see the richness of the open and free source software. The richness of the open and free source software. We have another one. This is, though it is not comes under the open access practice, even if I have actually put it down because lots of information are there. Number one is Google Scholar, which is freely applicable web search engine that indexes the full text or metadata of scholarly literature. So this Google Scholar is one kind of actually they're maintaining the metadata itself and the along with the literature, but it is only known to the few people. But now it is a wonderful scope and coverage, so that I can give you the impetus that the Google Scholar is might be sometime a very important tools to pursue your research work. So research Google tools. And another one is Wisdom AI. Wisdom is AI is a reference tools for global research and development, which gives you wide search option such as topic which comes under the India institution wise requirement, which comes under the journal names and the country names, etc. So it is really sometimes impossible to a scholar, so that this is that you can search with this wisdom.ai. Actually, the main thing is in the specialty of wisdom AI is they are actually retrieving those topics which comes under the periphery of the different kind of journal names, which might be filtered with the country name, which might be filtered with the institution name, etc. So this is the thing actually we have to look into. Another one is for the science, technical, and medical research. That is Science Direct. 80 million documents from 4,000 colleges, academic journals, and 30,000 ebooks. So, in case of Science Direct, we have 80 million documents for 4,000 academic journals, and it is actually giving you the bibliographic metadata on the free basis. So we have that kind of Science Direct itself. So with the help of these sources, what we can do, we can create a reading list, number one. Then what we can do a literature mapping. See, literature mapping is one of the key strategy actually for searching literature or for your research. See, in previous days we are doing the database discretion itself. No? So what for the research work, what we are doing, we are actually segregating our search topics by considering different type of facets, that is key terminology through which we are going to conduct our research work. So the main parameters, the main chunks, and the main content or the topic that should be identified. And literature mapping is as a systematic method to identify, evaluate, and interpret the work of other researchers. So it is mapping means it's a graphical plan. It's a diagrammatic representation or geographical metaphor of your research topic. So through the literature mapping, we can create a new type of systematic searching. So insightful.xyz, I repeat, insightful.xyz is an example of literature mapping tool. So by accessing this area or this website, you can have the information. These are some of digital access brokers like Code Discovery, InNote, Lazy Scholar, Site Scholars, etc. And in other way, we are using Sci-Hub even. For the referencing part, you can use Zotero and Mendeley. That is also available on the open source platform, which is a free reference manager and academic social network that can help you to organize and collaborate different articles, different source of literatures which you are actually working on. And you can enlist your reference list, you can prepare your reference list, and you can save, augment all the reference list of a particular topic on a particular topic by using these two software, that is Zotero and Mendeley. So this is the time that through by using this kind of tools, by using such kind of techniques and the software, you can discover your research topic, you can create or generate your new content, your very own content, you can curate, you can share your knowledge with others like me. So I'm using all these materials from the open access platform by using open source software, and I am just delivering this session with the help of this all those open platform even. So this is the entire thoughts and thinking what actually I'm trying to share with you. If you have any kind of questions in your mind on this topic, please let me know. Thanks to you, and thanks to the organizer for giving me such opportunity to share my views and thoughts with you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for sharing valuable information with us. You gave us clear idea on research support tools, open access, equity and equality, open licenses, open format, open access journal, green way and gold way, and intellectual property right. Now forum is for question answer for participants. I am seeing first Supriya Datta has raised the hand. Please, ma'am, ask the
Yes,
question.
please. Yes, please. Miss. I'm not properly getting you, madam.
আপনি বলুন প্রশ্ন ম্যাম।
আমি দেখেছি আমি ভাবছি জিনিসগুলো নিয়ে কোনো প্রশ্ন।
Okay, anyone else who want to ask questions from the participants?
Good afternoon, madam. I am Boishakhi Nag from Bhoirab Ganguly College. Your lecture was really commendable and very much informative. Madam, I would be highly obliged if you could provide material for today's session so that we all can benefit from that material.
Okay, sure.
And madam, would you like to share your email ID with us?
Why not? Definitely. This is my mail ID. I am sharing in the chat box.
Thank you, madam.
This one. Please see the chat box for my email.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone want to ask question from the participants?
I can understand in Bengali and Hindi version even.
It's okay, ma'am.
If anyone want to talk with me in Bengali and Hindi, then I can do that.
Okay, ma'am. Being a librarian, I have to ask a question.
Yeah, please.
Ma'am, actually, if I downloaded different materials for say books, data, or whatever from the free websites and make a database in my website, so that will be the violation of the Copyright Act, or I should be give the link only? That's the main question.
So what you can do, you can actually create your one kind of own custom search engine by using Google custom search engine. See, and
Okay.
you can enlist maximum number of links of the sources that is actually available on the open platform, like directory of open access journal, open access thesis and dissertation, uab.org, that is a directory of open access books itself, and base core, like that. So you can enlist maximum number of sources from where you and your learners are being able to download maximum number of open access documents. See, and what will be the practice there? Just by using this custom search engine, you are giving your learners only one point search place through which you are actually directing and forwarding the entire query to the particular source itself. So it is one kind of query forwarding search mechanism that will not violate any kind of thing.
Okay, ma'am. Okay,
But
ma'am.
it is one kind of thing that you should maintain the provision of the open access things, because whenever you are declaring the matter as open access material or OER material, then you should maintain the matter of the copyright issues. That must be published under the Creative Commons licensing pattern that I have shown to you, and you can even browse the matter from creativecommons.org. They are giving you the provision of 6 consecutive licensing pattern. And with that license only, those documents having such kind of Creative Commons license are declared as the open license or open source or open access materials. And rest are considered as the free material. I repeat, it is the free material. It is not the open material. For the tag of the open access material, Creative Commons license must be there.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you. Nipa Sharma, want to ask a question?
Ma'am, I have a question regarding in a qualitative research, how far Intellectual Property Act is related with qualitative research?
See, intellectual property right is actually it is not you. Actually, in academics, we have 2 segregation. One is the content contributor, those who are the authors, and another one is the user. We consider ourselves as the researchers, who might be a content creator, isn't it? So, for the content contributor to retain their right, the copyright law, even the intellectual property right is being used. It is not with any kind of qualitative or quantitative representation. Quality is a matter of the concern. See, definitely one basic thing is very much on the basis of your likeliness, that might be a good thing. On the basis of my likeliness, it might be a bad thing. So quality is not about the matter of the such kind of intellectual property right or law like that. Quality is something, a concept like this, that a content, a writing, an article, how far it is lucid, understandable to the learners.
Okay, I mean,
Intellectual
property is only
and
applicable.
if you are actually violating, or if you are actually stealing other ideas, see, we are not stealing the words, we are stealing other ideas. In each and every language, more than 50,000 to 60,000 words are there. We are juggling with the words itself, but what we are trying to steal or we are trying to use others, that is the concept of other content contributor.
Okay.
Copyright law or intellectual property right is with the concept itself, not with the words.
Okay.
And Creative Commons license giving you, or as an author, actually it is a provision for the authors itself, who are giving you the prior permission to how to use, up to which extent you are actually permitted to use their content. If he is allowing you, then you can create a new content by using his or her document, and you can sell it. If they're giving you not giving you that permission, you are not intended to do that. So these are the provisions to reuse. It is not about each and every document which is generated by a content contributor. It is already implied with the copyright, which actually comes under the periphery of the intellectual property right, which included with the design, geographical indicator, trade design, patents and all. So quality is not about the intellectual property right. Intellectual property right is all about to retain the author's rights.
Okay, ma'am.
I think it is clear to you now. Anyone? Any other question?
Okay, ma'am. My power has been failed down there, so I got lost the link. So I think so. No more questions is there from the participants. now I'm concluding. I would like to thank you, Dr. Banali Roy Chaudhary, for her informative presentation. I am also very much thankful to all program advisory committee and members and their invited speakers. Words are not enough to thank their content guidance and support to shape this workshop. I would like to thank you all participants for attending this session. I, on the behalf of organizing committee, convey deep regards and heartily thanks to TIC of Kalinagar Mahavidyalaya, Dr. Ishani Ghosh, IQAC Coordinator Dr. Subhashi Chatterjee, Dr. Shoma Bandyopadhyay, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Baba Saheb Ambedkar Education University. They support in all possible manner to organize this workshop. So by this, I conclude this session. Thank you all for attending and hope you have enjoyed this session. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And I'm leaving the session. Thanks to you all.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
No, ma'am.
Before I conclude, I have a information to share with all participants. Our convener, Krishna ma'am, told me that all the participants should take part actively in all sessions without any fail. If it is not possible, then maybe the issue of certificate may be an issue. And the participation in examination on 27 is mandatory for getting certificate on this workshop. So please take active participation in this workshop. It's a request.
Actually, I have a request.
Okay, ma'am.
Sir, I have a request. Though we are trying to convey to all the speakers that we are in desperate need of study material, we are not assured that we will be getting those materials. Now, how can we be sure of the fact that we will be getting the study material?
I will try, ma'am. I will ask IPC coordinator to manage all the study material and share it to the group so that you can give it to the all the participants. I will convey the message, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. We can conclude it. Tomorrow, the next session will start at as usual time, 10:30 a.m. Okay, thank you.
Sir, will be the link, same link will be there?
Yes, the same.
Okay,
no change in the link.
Okay.
Sir, I have a question, last question, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I have heard that we have to formulate every day's lecture and summarize those lectures and upload it in the web page. Is it, sir, correct information?
I have not known because I have just been act as a moderator today, as you know, for this session only. Just in the day schedule work, I am finding that for this, some persons are devoted to the reporting. More than that, I have no idea actually, ma'am. So if you have any question, raise the question in the group so that IQC coordinator can get the information and proceed according to this.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So we can leave. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.